iteration demo is more of a general agile terminology. Okay, so sprint review or iteration demo, they are both exactly the same thing. By definition, sprint review is a ceremony in which the project is assessed against a sprint goal determined during the sprint planning meeting. So, those of you who have been attending my webinar on a constant basis, we have gone over how the sprints look like in a Scrum methodology. And one of the ceremony in there is sprint review. Okay, so what we do is at the beginning of the sprint, we do sprint planning, right? So, sprint planning meeting, okay, time box to 8 hours as per Scrum. Um, what we do in that sprint planning meeting is we take out stories from the product backlog based on the priority, and we put them in sprint backlog. Okay, so sprint backlog is created in sprint planning meeting, and it is based off of the priority and the velocity of the team, right? So you all know that. Once we do that, at the end of the sprint, there has to be some kind of a review where we say, okay, this is what we had committed, and this is what we have finished. Okay, so that is exactly what you do in sprint review or iteration demo. Okay, some people also call it iteration showcase, iteration demo. They're all the same things. Okay, at the end of the sprint, you're trying to assess against the sprint goal that you had set. Okay, you do that review. Another important thing here to note is that this is an objective review. It is not just whether we finished the story or not. There is a true demo. What it means is that, let's say you finished 6 stories. Okay, so you close 6 stories. What you would do is you would actually do a demo of those stories and see them in action. Okay, you can have any environment. You can have a QA environment, a staging environment, development environment, whichever environment you choose. You show a working feature, breathing and living with realistic test data, okay, against the acceptance criteria. So it's, if you remember the Agile manifesto, working software is a true measure of progress. Okay, that is exactly what we are trying to do here. We are not just looking at stories, which stories were marked closed against what were committed. What you're trying to do is you're trying to assess what is truly complete, what is truly working, a working software. That's what you're trying to assess. And in my experience, even the most conditioned agile teams, they miss this ceremony. They miss it or they postpone it and it never happens. So they are casual about it. And it's very easy to be casual about it. So my suggestion to all of you who are um, you know trying to do agile transformation in their organization, this is an important ceremony, important meeting. um, Please do not overlook the the benefits that you'll get from here. Also, to keep in mind, this is different than the sprint retrospective. Okay, sprint retrospective is kind of a lessons learned within that sprint. It's a it's an opportunity to get feedback from the whole team, what is working well, what is not working well, etc. Whereas sprint review is focused on what you actually completed in the sprint and how it is working, how well it is working. Few other points here. Okay, keep in mind that at the end of the sprint, you are producing a valuable software. Okay, something that is coded and tested and is of value. Okay, that we know from the whole nature of story and sprint planning. Whatever that you produce, they are finished goods. Okay, they are finished good, and that's what you're demoing. Another very significant point here is that this is a great opportunity to engage both management and even customer. Okay, so I am a very big fan of keeping the customer engaged, whoever is going to use the system, the end users. They can be internal users or external users or real customers. This is a, an extremely good opportunity to engage them. You can, because you will get very rich and uh, honest feedback at this time. Okay, when you're showing how a particular feature is working. It also ties up with that acceptance test driven development, where you do the demo, or you do a discuss first, then you distill, you do develop, and then demo. So this could be that demo. Okay, sometimes teams, they don't do demo for each and every story to the customer. Instead, you may choose, depending on your organization culture, your team comfort level, and the engagement of customer, you may want to do it at the end of the sprint. Okay, which is your sprint review, right? So very good opportunity to keep the customer engaged. Okay, this is the power of Agile. You have all these opportunities to take feedback, and and it happens in a short cycles, which are iterations or sprints. Also, to keep in mind, you want to keep it time boxed. You all, as scrum masters, agile coaches, you would be facilitating this. So there'll be, who all would be present. There'll be product owners. There would definitely be the team product owner. They're definitely going to be there. And on top of that, you will have management or customers. Okay, so you want to keep it time boxed. A few of the things that I have not mentioned here, keep in mind that it is not a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so don't make that mistake of thinking that it is some kind of a demo in which they are looking for some pretty slides. Okay, you're looking for a living and breathing demo. Okay, if there are any questions on this, I'll be able to take them. So far, I don't see any questions, but feel free to write your questions whenever you want. All right. The next topic, we always have a 3-point agenda. This is the second agenda item. So we're talking about metrics. Metrics in Agile, they come in various different forms. We are going to look at 4 forms, maybe 3 or 4 forms of metrics. Okay, the first one is velocity. The second one is cycle time slash throughput, and the third one is earned value management, EVM in Agile. Okay, and maybe fourth one, the escape defects. I have taken a separate session on escape defects altogether, so I'll go very quick on that. But keep in mind that Agile is very objective. It's very good about uh, object, reviewing things or monitoring things in a quantifiable way. Okay, and if something doesn't seem right, there are it is very good about allowing you to do quick adaptation to make that correction. Okay, it is not like you'll finish the whole design first, the whole development, and then the whole QA. You have you have short iterations, and you are able to monitor things within that iteration too and make quick adjustments when needed. Okay, this is the one of the biggest powers of Agile. So let's look at the first one, velocity. All right, I think I've gone over velocity a couple of times already in my past webinars, but it is such a simple and such a rudimentary uh, metrics or rudimentary monitoring tool that I want to emphasize on it whenever possible. Okay, so by definition, velocity is how much work you can do in an iteration. All right. Definition is very simple. It's very easy to understand. Why it is so important? Because it helps forecasting. Everything is based on forecasting. Okay, you want to be able to plan your releases. There, you are providing a lot of flexibility in the changes in the requirement. At the same time, there has to be some level of predictability in your releases. Okay, whether when you would be able to reach your milestones in your um, product roadmap. So if you're not able to predict those milestones, you will not be able to do release planning. If you're not able to do release planning, there can be all sorts of problems, especially with the customers that you're working with. The customers want to know when a particular feature would be available, okay, which is directly linked with the releases. If you're not able to tell them that your release cycles or your release date, it is a very bad customer experience. Okay, and velocity is tied up at the very center of this. If you know your team's velocity, you know how many story points or how much work you can do in a particular iteration, and then you can, it's just a matter of extrapolating that data. Okay, what you see in the graph here is how a velocity trend that you may see, a typical velocity trend. So you start with the first iteration, you have a given team, you start with the first iteration. At first you'll see this varying velocity up to sprint 5, some number of sprints, and then your team would attain a sustainable pace. Okay, sustainable pace is another agile term, very close to velocity. So you can see 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can see that there's a sustainable pace around 30 story points. So if you, as a scrum master, have to plan for sprint 11, you can easily take, you, you can confidently take 30 story points worth of backlog stories. Okay, and if you're planning to do a release after 3 iterations from here, let's say iteration number 13 is going into a release, you can extrapolate that information too. Okay, so you have 30, you multiply it by 3 more iterations, so you can put out 90 story points worth of work in that release. So if you're really good about your backlog being in order in prioritized form, and you have a good sense of estimates, because the estimates are relative, they are very accurate. The work may go, the effort may go up and down, but because they are relative estimates, you will still have them very accurate. Okay, so in that way you can go to your product owner, or your scrum master, or US scrum master, go to the product owner and the customer and let them know where you are drawing the line in the product backlog. Wherever you finish those 90 story points, you can draw the line there. You can let them know, these are the features, these are the stories that are going to be available to you 3 iterations from now. Okay, so that's about velocity being a very important matrix. Okay, following that, we have a concept of cycle time and throughput. This is not a new uh, agile concept. This has always been there. I reckon all of you are pretty seasoned project managers, or have experience in enterprise level projects, so you must have come across the cycle time and throughput um, concepts. By definition, cycle time is a measure of how long it takes an idea to get from business charter to delivered capability. Okay, so an idea pops up in your mind. From that point on, how long does it take to realize that idea? Okay, that is your cycle time. Okay, very simple, very obvious definition. Okay, and then there is how it is related. It is directly proportional to work in progress, right? So work in progress and throughput are some of the terms that are related to cycle time. So you can see cycle time is inversely proportional to throughput and directly proportional to work in progress. Okay, as long as your work is in progress, your cycle is still going, right? And the throughput is inversely proportional to that. Okay, as soon as your cycle is over, that is when you measure your throughput. Okay, there are various ways of looking at this. This is not a new concept. Okay, you'll find a lot of resources there. But the important thing here, from the agile point of view, is that what you really want to do is you want to maximize your throughput. Okay, if you see the if you work you keep the work in progress on the x-axis here. It's elaborated using graphs. If you keep the work in progress on the x-axis, the throughput, it levels off after some time. Okay, this is a um, typical trend that you would see with throughput. And in agile, because you're doing iterative development, you are um, taking feedback at constant intervals, and your team is small, and it is working on things that are absolutely clear, heads down. Okay, so there are less distractions. There are clarity in the stories that you're working on. Okay, because they have been discussed, they have been estimated. uh, you have done any kind of problem solving that you needed to do before the sprint started. You have done that as a group. Okay, so there's a high quality that uh, you're instilling in that whole process of development, because you're following agile. So what happens is you are maximizing this throughput. Okay, you're maximizing before it hits that plateau. Okay, and the and also, if you look at cycle time, if you see the trend of cycle time against work in progress, so as your work in progress increases, your cycle time also increases. It means that you're having to work more to be able to deliver that idea. Okay, so this is the relationship between cycle time, work in progress, and throughput. Those of you who attended my webinar on value stream mapping and value stream analysis, on how we looked at a traditional model, how the value stream map looks like in a traditional flow, and then we convert it to a lean value stream map after removing all the waste and doing iterative development. There, these concept of cycle time and throughput were very clearly elaborated. So if you haven't seen that, there's video available on my YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to it, and I'm sure you'll find that video very useful, and not just from the cycle time and throughput point of view, but also you're learning about the lean concepts. I see a couple of questions here. One of them is on the sprint review. How is sprint review different than retro? Yeah, so like I was saying, I'll just go back very quickly. So sprint review is different than the retro. I should have actually put a bullet point there. Retro is lessons learned. Okay, similar to lessons learned. Okay, you're doing. You are the mindset behind retro is how we can improve ourselves. Okay, what are the things that we did right? What are the things that we have to start doing? What are the things that we have to stop doing? Okay, that is a mindset of retro. Retro can also be time boxed. Okay, usually retro can take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, depending on the size of your team and the size and the length of your sprint. Uh, and sprint review is something that is similar. It's something that is more focused on seeing what you completed. Okay, whatever that you completed, you are doing a demo of that. You're showing it off, what you have actually completed. So the focus is entirely different between they both happen at the end of the sprint. Okay, a couple of you are asking for my YouTube channel. Yes, I will most certainly give you the YouTube channel address at the end of this webinar, you can go directly there. Let me see if I have that already. I may just have it here. Yeah, okay, sure. So you should all have gotten, I'll put it on the chat here as well. Okay, so that's the YouTube channel. All these recordings, they end up there. All right, let's go on. All right. So we looked at velocity, we have looked at cycle time, throughput, and work in progress. Let's talk about earned value management. Okay. Earned value management is a very old concept. There is an Agile has taken a subset of that earned value management. It is not a full-fledged version, because a full-fledged version is very elaborate, consumes a lot of time, and given the kind of uh, iterative development we do, we don't really we keep ourselves short-sighted. Okay, so we don't need a full-fledged adaptation of EVM. Okay, so in Agile, EVM is a shorter adaptation of the actual EVM. Okay, it works off of minimal set of parameters, input parameters. We'll see which ones are those. Okay, there are 3 parameters that are most essential. And the estimates, when we are talking about estimates here, they are flexible. Okay, so they can be hours, story points, days, etc. So, which is very good about Agile. Okay, the units are always flexible. Okay, because we are doing a very objective analysis, and they don't have to be in hard dollars. They don't have to be in hard hours. They can just be unitless. Okay, story points are unitless. Okay, so by definition, okay, earned value management is a technique to assess the performance of a project against a plan in an objective way. Right, this is the definition. And why do we want to do that? You as Scrum masters, you as Agile coaches, as leaders, you want to detect problems in the project early on. Right, you don't want to be reaching the end of the release cycle and then realize that you have a problem with your budget, you have a problem with your schedule, you have a problem with your team resourcing. Okay, there are risks that were not assessed. Okay, you don't want to reach that point. You want to assess all these things early on as you're executing in the sprints, as you're executing through the release. You want to be able to detect problems early on. As I said, there are 3 terms that you would need to know for Agile EVM. These are those 3 terms. Okay, those of you who have taken PMP already or studied for it, you probably would know this already. Okay, the EVM in PMP is a lot more elaborate. Okay, there are many terms. There's budget and completion, variance at completion, estimate at completion. There are all those uh, different calculations that are done. Okay, but keep in mind, PMP is much closer to the traditional way of project management, or PMP takes into account the whole cycle of project. So the EVM that we're talking about here is Agile EVM. Okay, but the terms, the input parameters, they're almost the same. So the first one is planned value, okay, or PV. Those of you who are planning to take the Agile certification from PMI, they will have they use short forms. What is planned value? It's the estimated value of work to be accomplished within a fixed period. Okay, what the value that you plan to deliver in that fixed period. Okay, this serves as a baseline. Okay, so this is planned, and you will use this to see the performance against the actual as you start executing. Okay, so estimated value of the work to be accomplished within a fixed period. It serves as a baseline against which actual performance is measured. And then you have the earned value, which is EV, short forms. It's the actual value of the work completed in that fixed period, right? So let's say your release is a 3-month release cycle, okay? And you planned something for that release, okay, based on your velocity, based on your team, based on the estimates you had, based on the product backlog, prioritization, you estimated, okay? And once you finish, let's say, first sprint, okay, and you should have, and you have 3 sprints for that release, okay, a month-long sprint, let's say, okay, so 3 months release cycle and a month-long sprint each, okay, so 3 sprints, one release. So at the end of the first sprint, have you actually put out a third of the value that you planned? Okay, that that is what you would want to assess. Okay, so at the end of the first sprint, you would see the value that you have actually completed, the value of the work completed in that fixed period. That fixed period is the first sprint, first month. And then you have the actual cost, which is AC, is the actual money spent in that fixed period. Okay, so you must have had some budget in that release cycle of 3 months. How much of that budget you have expended? Okay, measure it against the value that you have gained and measure it against what you had planned. Okay, that is simply what earned value management is. Now that you have these 3 terms, how are you going to use them in an objective way? Okay, here's how. There are these four these four variance and indices. Okay, 2 variances and 2 indices. Okay, the variance, as we all know, it always uses subtraction. So earned earned value minus planned value will always give you schedule variance, whether how you're doing in relation with the schedule. Earned value minus the actual cost will give you cost variance. How are you doing in terms of cost? And both of these, if they are positive, which means, why would they be positive? That you have earned value, your earned value is more than your planned value or cost, which means that you are ahead of schedule or you're ahead of cost. That means you have spent less to earn that value. Also notice that EV is in all the formulae. All right, so that's what that was about the variances. And then you have the indices. Same, you're trying to assess the same thing, but in an index form. Okay, this is very useful when you're putting them in bigger formulas. So schedule performance index, it's the same thing, earned value. This time you're dividing it by planned value, and if it is greater than 1, then it is good. That means you have earned more value than what you had planned in that period of time. Cost performance index, your earned value is divided by your actual cost, and positive is good. Sorry, greater than 1 is good, which means that you have earned value in lesser budget than what you had planned. So these are the four formulae that are very useful when you're doing earned value management. That is also what you would need to know if you're planning to take the PMI's Agile certification. Now, let's try to put this in more practical usage by taking an example. So the scenario here is you're given all these values already. Okay, so you're given the planned value. Don't worry about how it has come. So your planned value is given to be 40,500. Your earned value is given to be 30,566, and your actual value, actual cost, is given to be 31,500. Okay, let's say you're doing all this in hard dollar terms. Okay, in Agile, it is not necessary that you may want to do this in a hard dollar terms. You can use other units as well. Okay, now all we have to do is put these values in these formulae and calculate. Okay, simple. Your schedule variance comes out to be a negative 9,934. Your cost variance comes out to be negative 934. Okay, so you're just putting values in the formulae and arriving at these numbers. Schedule performance index comes out to be 0.75, and cost performance index comes out to be 0.97. Okay, now what do we do with this? You, as agile coaches, you want to know what these numbers mean. I mean, this is just raw data to you right now. You have to convert it to a form that it becomes more information and you're able to make decisions off of it. So usually what happens is that you have um, a reference. Okay, and creating this reference can take a little bit of time in a particular organization, particular team. But what you're trying to say is that if you're let me take a different color pen. Okay, if your index is less than zero point 0.9 or greater than 1.1, then your status is red. All right, if it is between 0.95, 0.9, 0.90, or in between 1.05 and 1.1, then it is amber. Okay, this is also called as rag chart: red, amber, green. Okay, very standard way of looking at things in three categories. What is it that needs immediate attention? What is it coming? What is a warning right now? And what is it that you don't need to worry about? Okay, and the green is if you have it between 0.95 and 1, and so on. Okay, so you can see your schedule performance is in red status, right? It is outside the bounds. Okay, so you can see it is less than 0.9. All right, and your cost performance is in green. Right, it's 0.97, which falls in here, this window. Okay, so as a Scrum Master, you have to spring into action and do something about the schedule performance. Okay, either you may want to readjust the schedule or find out why the schedule is slipping. Maybe do re-estimates of some of the stories. Talk to product owners to see if the scope can be somehow uh, revisited so that you still can deliver in the time that if you don't want to move the schedule. So there is some action that needs to be taken, and you can do that. Like I'll use the same example I was using, that you have a 3-month release cycle and you're at the end of the first month and you come out with these numbers. You still have 2 months to make up for a lot of things. Okay, imagine if you had found this towards the end of the sprint 3. Okay, if you were not doing all these earned value management calculations, you would only come to know when you'll see a ton of stories at risk at the end of sprint 3. Okay, which would make you look really bad as a scrum master or agile coach. Okay, so earned value management is a very good technique, a very objective technique, and it'll be your best friend if you want to identify risks early on. All right. So I see that there are some questions. All right. Just BAC. BAC is called budget and completion. Okay, I'm keeping it out of scope because earned value management itself is a very big subject. I don't want to go into the details of what all these terms are and how we arrived at planned value. I just want to focus more on what is the usage of this, schedule variance and SPI and all these indices. Okay. Okay, another question on why do we have variance and index? Well, the usage of variance and in indices is different, and sometimes you have to fit these values into bigger formulas, like you want to find out the estimate at completion. It's called ESE. So there are different ways of finding out, from let's say you're end of first month and you have 2 more months to go at so you want to see your pace. Okay, so your pace, based on that pace, you want to do projections, forecasting on how much time would it take to finish the work that is remaining work, how long it is going to take. And those calculations, they may vary depending on how you approach them. You may want to re-estimate everything what is remaining. You may want to use schedule performance index only. You may want to use um, cost performance index only. Okay, and to get absolute figures, you will need variances. Okay, so there's the variances and indices. They are used in a different way depending on which formula, what you're trying to achieve. Okay, another question on sprint demo. Oh, I've taken that already. Difference between sprint demo and retro. All right, let's test our knowledge. There are 3 questions. I want you to read these questions yourself and send me the answer. Okay, the answers are coming in. Give another 30 seconds here. For those of you who have not answered, please go ahead. Okay, so I got a mixed response. Um, the correct answer is D. Okay, sprint review and sprint retro. Okay, both these ceremonies, they happen at the end of the sprint. Okay, it is not just the sprint review. You do the sprint review, which is one meeting, and the sprint retro, which has a different agenda altogether, also happens at the end of the sprint. Okay, next question. Please go ahead and read. This is more of a little bit of calculative question. So go ahead and read. I'll give you an extra minute for this. Okay, so I see a few of you have sent your answers. The correct answer here is C. Again, I got a mixed response. So the key here is a lot of you answered D, okay, which would mean that you're able to complete more stories. But keep in mind the priority in the backlog matters, right? So if you start, so your velocity, this is a velocity question. Okay, so your velocity of the team is 10. Okay, A is 2 story points, B is 3 story points, and C is 4 story points, and so on. And they have also given this information. They're ranked in the order of priority. So this is the order of priority: A, B, C, D, and E. Right. So you want to go after the higher priority items first. Okay, and wherever you cross a line of 10 story points, you can stop there. So what you're doing is you're committing to these. So you can complete A, B, and C because they add up to 9 story points total. You can safely commit these 3 stories. You may also decide to start working on D. Okay, you may want to take partial story points from there, but you cannot commit D. Okay, another philosophy is that why don't we just discard C altogether and just use D and E? Okay, that may also be true. However, you are disregarding the priority in that. Okay, so what will happen is at the end of sprint, you would have D and E done, but C, which is a higher priority, a higher value story, you that is left incomplete. Okay, so at the end of a sprint, you want to put out the most valuable stories, okay, that are coded, tested, and most valuable. All right, last question before we adjourn. Go ahead, read and answer. Okay, the correct answer here is C. Okay, again, I got a mixed response. Um, it's very simple, right? You have, where are you checking the performance against a plan? Okay, so if you eliminate the wrong ones, it's very simple. Velocity is wrong, okay, because it is not against a plan. It is it's a matrix that tells you how much work a team can put out in a sprint. Escape defects is a different matrix altogether. Okay, it has nothing to do with the planning. Schedule performance index and cost performance index, if you remember the formula, okay, it's earned value divided by planned value and earned value divided by actual cost. That is where you are measuring it against some plan. Okay, and cycle time is another matrix, but it has nothing to do with planning. Okay, correct answer is C. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this webinar. We are finishing a little bit early today. I believe there were fewer questions this time around. So here's how you can reach me if you have any questions later on. I will be posting the recording of this video on YouTube, of course. Just a piece of information. The next ACP training, which is the PMI's Agile certification that gives you 21 PDUs, is going to be on 10th and 11th of May. Okay, the cost for that is $299. And you can register if you go to certschool.com, Agile classes webinar slash webinar. You'll be able to navigate if you reach certschool.com website. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach me to any of these channels. And if you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, if you can specify how you know me, that would really help. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you after a couple of weeks now. Take care. Bye bye.